My name's Dave Stetson. I'm a member of the Caricature Carvers of America, and I want to promote the Wood Carving Academy and show you how I carve necks on my heads. And this is the International Association of Wood Carvers.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the International Association of Wood Carvers. Today is the 11th of January, 2025. I want to welcome you all into our meeting today. Today on our meeting, we have one of our very own, Dave Stetson, is going to come in and do a demonstration for us. We're going to be talking a lot about Wood Carving Academy and the stuff that's available there. Before I get started with all that, though, I'll tell you all a little bit about what we have coming up. I'm going to be away at Chris Hammock's house for the next couple of weeks. So we'll not have another meeting until let's see, February the 1st. On February the 1st, Alan Goodman's going to come in and he'll be talking to us about the knives that he's making, the fundraiser that he's doing for the Hurricane Helena victims, and just talk a little bit about what he has to offer as far as knife making and stuff goes. So I look forward to having Alan on here. It'll be the first time that we have him on. On the 8th of February, we're going to have Joshua Walters back, and I just saw him in the meeting there. He's going to come in and talk about bases and maybe take us through some of that process. So look forward to having him back on. On the 15th of February, we're going to have Mr. Mike Pounders come back in. It's been a while since we had Mike on. He's going to talk to us about duplication machines and how to make your own. So that maybe you can make your own rough outs. And again, it would be a one-off. It's not one of these big duplication machines where you make several at one time. But he's going to take us through that process. And then on the 22nd of February, Bruce Ankeny is going to be coming in, and he's going to do a demonstration. So that's the month of February. We're currently working on trying to get people booked for March. Hopefully we have a full schedule through the spring. If you know of anybody that wants to come on and do a demonstration or wants to present, have them reach out to me or Dave Levy, and we'll make sure we get them signed up. I'll tell you a little bit about some workshops that are available. All of this information is out on Wood Carving Academy under their workshops. So make sure you go out on that site and check that out. Ryan Olson has a class that's immediately following this. We had Ryan on the last time. He's going to be doing hunks, I think is the way that he titled it, but it's caricature busts, real kind of a realistic caricature. So hopefully some of you all are joining in that class today. Dale Green, who's on with us today, has a class starting on February the 1st on carving shorties. Dave Stetson has a class coming up in March, I believe it is, on carving a cowboy with a bottle. And Dwayne Gosnell has a caricature class coming up on carving Tony, which is a caricature. If you're interested in any of these classes, make sure you reach out to the instructor, get signed up, find out the information that you need as far as a rough out or a cutout, and get into these classes. It's a great opportunity to come on and learn. You can see everything that the instructor is doing on the video. You get a recording of the class, so you can go back and rewatch that. Again, all that's hosted by Wood Carving Academy. If you want to go back and watch some of the classes that you know that's been held in the past, you should go out and subscribe to Wood Carving Academy. You can see pretty much everything that's available out there. And most of the classes that have been offered are out there if they're hosted by Wood Carving Academy. So you can work at those at your own pace. Again, they have subscriptions of 1 month, 3 months, or a year. So make sure you check that out. On our meeting today, we're also going to be doing an auction, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, and then Dave can show you a little more when he gets on here in a few minutes. But we're going to be doing an auction. All the proceeds go to benefit these meetings, the International Association of Wood Carvers. We use that money to pay for our Zoom subscription so that we can continue to have these free meetings each week. I've had a lot of people reach out to me on social media and say, hey, I want to be a part of this group. I want to be a member. I want to sign up. How can I join? We offer these meetings free of charge to you all because we want to help grow the community and we want to share with the community. But these auctions are the way that we're able to do that. So we try to offer these up. Maybe it's a good opportunity to get your hands on a LV knife or a wood carving that you've been looking for, or even try out Wood Carving Academy. So today, what we're going to be offering is Dave Stetson's signature series knife that he's autographed, and he'll show that in a few minutes. The carving that he is doing in the demo will be available also, and 1 month of Wood Carving Academy subscription. So that's a package deal. It's all three in one auction. So high bid wins. Whoever's the highest bid at the end of the meeting will win all three of those items, and that money will go to allow us to further these meetings. So just want to say thank you for everybody that's participated in those in the past. Again, it's been a big success for us, and that's why we're going on 5 years of being able to do these meetings, is because people like you who've donated, you've come in, you've participated in the auctions, and it's just been a real benefit, hopefully, to the whole community. So I just want to say thank you for that. Again, today we have Dave Stetson on. Before he gets started with this demo, as usual, we're going to ask Dave to come in and do his words of wisdom. So Dave, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Blake. I decided I wouldn't give you a word of wisdom as in the past, which is quotes handed down from famous Renaissance artists and what have you. This one's going to be a quote from me. And I'm going to share with you a conversation that I had with online with another talented carver. And I was asked what I was going to be doing today. And I said, I'm going to be carving a caricature bust with a neck and a turned head. Meant to impress my theory on those who are always looking for the easy way out. And their response was, true masters know there's no easy way, except practice, practice, and even if you're tired, practice some more. And my thought was, I can tell them all they need to know in a relatively short time, but their knowledge means nothing if they can't learn to see what they know. Even a clear understanding is hopeless without enough practice to see what you only thought you knew. And with that, the practice developed the skill required to execute what your mind knows. Repeat again 1,000 times. Nay, 10,000 times. Only then will you begin to scratch the surface and realize there isn't enough years in a lifetime to become a true master of your subject. If you're discouraged by that thought, find another avocation. It's what it takes. The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate those words every week, and definitely reminds me to keep my knife in the wood. And that's one of the sayings that I always tell people is the only way you're going to get better as a carver is to carve. And like he said, not 10 times, not 100 times, not 1,000 times, 10,000 times to be able to improve. So I encourage you all to do that. 2025, it's a good time to get started in carving. There's a lot of resources out there, and really no reason not to. So try to take advantage of these classes and things that are available. Go to shows, support those shows, learn from other carvers, reach out to people on social media. It's really the best community out there, and I continue to say that. People are so helpful and willing to share. So make sure if somebody does ask you that you help out, because again, we're trying to grow this community. So just want to remind you all, and something I meant to say a few minutes ago, if you want to help us through International Association of Woodcarvers, but you don't have the money to donate or participate in the auction, just go out and like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook channel, our Instagram channel. On YouTube, we have a library out there of almost 200 videos. Again, we've been doing this 5 years. Go back and rewatch some of those things, or watch some of the things that you're interested in. I think people kind of forget that library is out there, and it's a great resource to go out and pick up tips and stuff on carving, and just learn something new. So make sure you check that out. That's my way of encouraging you to participate in this group, and that's the only way that we have membership, is by you just participating. So just want to say that. And again, thank you all for joining us for this class, or this meeting today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Dave Stetson. I'm going to ask him to show the knife that we're auctioning, and talk a little bit about the carving he's going to do, and the donation that he's making for this auction. and then we'll go ahead and get started. So Dave, I'll go ahead and flip it back over to you.
Thanks, buddy. So this is the Helvey knife that Rich and Holly have donated. It's Rich always burns it's a signature series knife, CCA. This in my knives, the brown line there is a piece of mesquite that's forged into the handle and actually glued in, not forged in. But that's from a mesquite tree sitting out in the front yard, or what's left of it. Um, and it's about a 2.5 inch or a 2 inch blade, and that's kind of what I use. So that's one of what is going to be handed out. And if you bid on that, you're going to have to stick around at the end of the demonstration so that you can give us, if you would have the winning bid, so you can give us your name. And then we're going to, whatever I do in the demonstration, I'm going to finish up, paint up like this guy, so that you'll end up with this and the knife. And I think there was also a certificate for Wood Carving Academy.
Yeah, they'll get 1 month, Dave, of Wood Carving Academy, and they can go on with your Ron and get signed up for that. And it's their opportunity to be able to check that out.
All right. So with that, I'm going to set this aside and then hope I can find it when I get done. My shop was cleaned out. I mean, cleaned up, I should say. Cleaned up, cleaned out, whatever. I've got a lot more room in here now, and I can't find a damn thing. I come walking out here with something, and I've got so many places to put it down that I forget where I put it. So I was better off when I didn't have a place to put anything. So I don't know if it pays to clean up or not. We're going to do a head with a neck. I went back through social media looking at carvings, photos of carvings that have been posted. And I briefly looked at 20 heads. And out of the 20 heads, only 3 of them had a neck. Those were caricature carvings. Nobody puts necks on them. They just carve the head right on top of the shoulders. And there's actually a neck there. And when you don't put a neck on your carving, your heads are pretty well locked in straight forward. So you end up with something like this. And this guy even has a neck, but he doesn't have a turned head because he's carved on a stick like this, an 1.5 inch stick. And that's what we get that head out of. But to create this as a bust, he has to have shoulders. So we're looking at something more like these guys. You know, it can have a long, narrow neck, can be a stockier neck, but nonetheless a neck. But you have to expose some shoulders, and it's hard to do that when you're just working off an 1.5 inch stick. So I've got a pattern that I use that cuts it from an 1.5 inch by 2 inch stick for my bust. But I take it to the bandsaw first, and I put an angle on all of my sticks that I prep, so that I can get get the head to look up at me instead of looking straight forward. So if he's sitting on a table and you're looking down at it, you're basically looking down on the top of the head. You're looking down on the top of the nose. You're not looking at him eye to eye. But if you can tilt that back ever so slightly, it makes a big difference in how the piece looks sitting on a table. So I created this jig that I use. I'll go back, I'll take a 12-inch stick and I'll cut it into 3-4 inch sections like this. This is kind of the way you buy them. And then I'll take it and set it in the jig like this, and this goes up against the fence. I decide which corner I'm going to put the nose on. And if I look at the wood and I look at the grain on this particular stick, the grain's going like this. So if the grain's looking like that from the top, I want to carve from the outside of the tree in. So the heart of the tree is going to be on the back of the head. The sapwood's going to be out. at the nose. So I always give myself a little reminder which way I want the nose to go. Then when I set this jig on my bandsaw, riding against the fence, I know where the fence goes because it says fence right there. Up here it says nose, so I know which way the nose points. So if I set my block in there, run this on the fence, and the stick goes through the block of the bandsaw blade, that's the angle I take on all these heads before I start them. Now, that's fine if you're just doing a head on an 1.5-inch stick. A head is a step up from just doing a face on the corner because you're doing the entire head in the round. You're giving yourself a full 3-dimensional head. But if you use an 1.5-inch stick, you can come out with a block that has shoulders with a turned head. But this sits in the fence the same way. Goes through the bandsaw. We put an angle on the back. Now it's a compound angle. If you don't put a compound angle on it, you get a head that's sitting up like this. And when you turn it, you get something that looks like it's trying to fall over. So the head loses all its balance. So that angle has to be put on there first. I've learned that it's just, there's no second way around it. You got to just suck it up and use a little more wood. Now, growing up in New England, I'm afraid I got some Yankee in me. So all you guys from the South, hope you won't hold that against me. But something that happens to you when you grow up in the North is you become more frugal. You don't like using a block like this, using all that extra wood just to add the dimension of a shoulder on your block. So what I like to do whenever I cut out heads like this is I save the pieces that come off. So I save all of these pieces and I end up with a whole stack of them. And then when I cut a head from an 1.5-inch block like this, I'll flip it around, I'll put some glue on it, put a clamp on there, and glue this up, and it creates the same thing I get from using 2-inch stock. All I'm doing is adding an extra 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch onto the side to give me the bust that I want to do. So of these heads that are sitting here, this one came up from a full 2-inch block. This one came from a one that I added a piece onto. So those pieces are real easy to add on. They don't have to
A
be
little bit
pretty.
high, Dave. There you
They
go.
don't have to be pretty, but they really make a big difference in the final outcome. All right. Enough. Any questions on the prep? You got a question, don't be afraid to unmute yourself and ask.
Dave, Myron here.
Yeah, buddy.
Your little fixture there. I've got a downward shot of it. Could you kind of turn that? There you go, buddy. Good.
Okay. So what I did was this is all scraps. I've just glued them up to get a size that'll work.
Okay.
And
Great. Good.
these were kind of square when I started. This piece is just a piece of scrap that I pulled out. I took one of these 1.5-inch blocks and I set it on the block and traced around it, corner to corner on the edge, and just cut that out square to the block. So that I've got a cradle that'll hold it so that the bandsaw won't tweak it and snap it out of your fingers.
Okay.
To do
Thanks.
this without a jig is not safe. The worst case scenario is you break a blade. Best case is you cut your finger off. I'd much rather lose a finger than a brand new saw blade. But that's me. Um, does that answer your question, buddy?
Yes, sir. It sure did.
All right. Thank you for being on here, Myron. Um,
I enjoy it.
I want to point out that what I said in my words of wisdom, um, I can attribute a lot of that to what I see coming from you. You have taken your abilities to a higher level than most.
I'll tell you what, that class of middle 2023 that you had on heads and caricature heads, I just loved that class. I sure did.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. This what we're doing today is not going to go into finishing a head. It's going to be more something along these lines. We're going to get the head in there, but I'm not going to take your time to play around with the detail. There's plenty of videos on how to detail these faces. What we're going to do is get a neck on there. Doing a neck gives you a lot of advantages, and I wrote myself some notes so I wouldn't forget to tell you stuff. But my problem is after I write a note, I don't remember what the hell I meant if I don't write it all out. So I've got notes I've got is we're going to try to create movement. We're going to create a natural pose, make it somewhat lifelike. Now you may say, I'm not a realistic carver. I like to do caricatures. I like to do cartoon. I like to do funny stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Caricature versus realism versus cartoon, any done well has qualities to be admired. It can be enjoyed by everyone. There's nothing wrong. My brand of caricature is different somewhat than cartoon because it's based on realism. So I'm going to show you a couple of things before we get started, so you know why I do what I do and where I'm coming from. So I'm just going to grab a sketchbook here, and I got a template to help me out. And what I'm going to do is just give you an oval. This oval represents a human head. So this is, if I'm looking at this from the front of the head, this being the top of the head, this being the chin, whatever that distance is, half of that distance is where the eyes lay on the head. From the eyes to the chin, half of that distance, base of the nose. Base of the nose to the chin is the bottom of the lower lip. So the mouth is going to sit up here a little bit. Ears join the head at the eye line. The flap of the ear goes up to the brow. The lobe of the ear is between the mouth and the nose. That's where the ear sits on a realistic head. And you're going to find exceptions to that. I was waiting to pick up a prescription at Costco yesterday afternoon, and there was a guy standing in front of me who had the largest ears that I have ever seen on a human. He was a caricature. Absolutely. The biggest damn ears I've ever seen. And I couldn't resist pulling my phone out. I'm standing behind him. I couldn't resist pulling my phone out and taking a picture because I said, I'm going to have to prove this to somebody at some point in time, that they actually do have people with ears that big. He was just a really great caricature. Now, I did not tell him I was taking his photo. All right, but nonetheless, the reason that this is important, this distance, is because when I look at the top of the head, same oval, same dimensions, from the back of the head to the nose. If this is the nose out here, your face sits here, your ears sit back here. But as you're looking down on the head from above, the distance from the front of the head to the back of the head pretty much equals the distance from the top of the head to the chin. You don't have to take my word for it. All you got to do is look at the people that you come in contact with. You'll find exceptions to it, but generally, 9 out of 10 people are going to have those proportions. Now I'm talking about Caucasians. All right. You're going to find ethnic groups whose head shapes vary, but that's a Caucasian. Now, why is this important? Because when I get ready to do this head on here, and I turn the head so that the nose is on this corner, like I said, I draw that little on there so I don't forget where that's at. I'm going to lay this head out in such a way that if I take this oval again from a top view and I put it into a rectangle, and I split this in half, and I take this dimension, half of this oval, and I repeat it. And I repeat it again, I'll get a proportional ratio of 2 to 3. Distance wide to distance and height. That represents this oval for a realistic human head. When I take this block, I'm starting with a square block. If I take half of that distance and half of this distance, and I'm just eyeballing it, so it may not be exact. But if I break down each of those sides, breaking it in half, and I connect two adjoining sides, and then I take the distance remaining on the back of the head and break it in half and connect those two sides, this is going to be a blocked in, squared off representation of this oval that we talked about. It's important to know that, and I'm about to show you why. I'm just going to come in here and remove this excess wood from the sides of the block. I know we're gonna carve a neck, but we got to have a head to start with. I could do like the easy bake oven that they do in cooking shows and put the cake in the oven and pull out one that's already done without wasting the time. But we don't need to economize time too much because we're only doing the neck. We're not doing all the details. So we get rid of that excess wood on the sides. I get rid of this in the back. And this is what I'll end up with. Now, if I take what I've got here, I split it down the middle, give myself a center line. And if I divide that distance into thirds, and I check what I've got here, if the width equals the height of each of those segments, I've got the same thing that I started with here. So now all I have to do is measure from the back of the head to the nose. Put my finger on there and pinch it. Mark it down here. So that distance right here equals this distance here. So I know where my chin goes. Now, when I cut these out, I leave a little excess down here. If I want to get carried away with hair, if I want to get carried away with a longer chin, I've got some wood to do that. So this is kind of my generic blank for practicing heads. How many heads do you have to carve to learn this? Well, I like to think I already know how, but what I have done this week just to get ready to show you guys what I'm doing, this is what I did. That's what I did this week. So, do you have to do that many? No. Am I excessive? Yes. But I believe it's what I need to do to understand what I'm trying to tell you. So I have many more unfinished heads than I do finished ones. So do I know what I'm talking about? No, not normally, not usually. But I think I know enough about it to have an intelligent discussion with anybody that wants to talk about it. When you learn something about your carving, when you learn something about your subject, it generally comes during the process of practicing. And practicing is not doing something repetitively. That can be practice, I suppose. You may have heard that practice doesn't make perfect. Only perfect practice would make perfect. But a word of wisdom that I shared with you a few weeks ago was that we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. And I have heard that from many, repeated from many forms of art. Carving, painting, drawing, that's visual arts, but there's another visual art. And that's the visual art that's done by actors. And what I'm repeating about that quote about failure is from the mouth of George Clooney, an actor. Says you learn nothing from success. All your knowledge and what you learn comes from failures. So you can take that for what it's worth. I've come to believe it. All right, so I've got my chin set. So I've taken that up a little bit, and there's my bust. I've got the angle on here so that it leans back, and it leans back, but the head is still vertical. It's still straight because of that compound angle that's cut back here on this. Now what I want to do is tell you about what happens when you turn your head. So I'm going to look up those of you that have your video on and see if you follow along with me. But when you turn your head to the side, yeah, you got to look at me again. When you turn your head, the shoulder that you're turning your head toward comes up. Your back shoulder drops away. You turn your head the other way, you're going to feel tension in your neck that becomes really uncomfortable. You can't turn it nearly as far the opposite direction unless you shift your shoulders. When you shift your shoulders, it goes easy. So you always, it's just a natural movement. So if you don't shift the shoulders, you're going to lose that bit of reality that's going to sell the fact that you've put in some dynamic movement into your carving. So back to the carving, that means the head's turned to the right. That means this shoulder is going to be up and the back shoulder is going to be down. How much? It's up to you. But I want an angle on the back of this thing. So as I come in here and set the shoulders, and I got to set the head and the shoulders before I can set the neck. The neck's what's going to connect them. So that's the high shoulder. One the chin's coming closest to. And the lower shoulder down here. Sometimes I call it the off shoulder. Or the dominant shoulder, or dominant shoulder's on the other side. This would be the off shoulder. And if this is something you're hearing from the first time, I would suggest you don't take my word for it. The only way that you're going to be able to remember and learn, feed your brain, is to go out and look at people. Look at the people you come in contact with. I mean, if this is what you want to do, this is a subject you want to study. Take advantage when you're out in public. Take advantage of the people that you're coming in contact with. Take advantage of the people you see around you. If you're sitting in a carving class, watch those guys that are in class with you. The guys with the best character are the old guys. Those are the guys that are sitting there taking a class with you. And they're just sitting there for you to study. That's the only downside to online teaching, is that you don't get to point out these things on the students that are sitting in class with you. Okay, so I've got shoulder up, shoulder down. I've got the head turned. Now I've got to work in toward the neck. My head from front to back is, yeah, about the same distance. So we're good there. When I look at this from the side, we didn't talk a lot about the side view, but your cranium's going to sit in this area here, halfway back on this shape here is going to be center of mass on your skull. That center of mass, vertically and horizontally. So if you were looking through a telescope that had a crosshair in it, that would be center mass on the head. That's where the ear connects. Okay, when I did this to start with, I told you how these proportions broke down. Halfway from the chin to the top of the head, and this varies. You can go up and down with this. That's about where your eye line is going to be. So I run this all the way around the head to see if it's even. if I come around and I meet the line where it started, then I'm doing okay. If it doesn't, then I need to make an adjustment. And if you're off at this stage of the carving by a 1/16 of an inch, it's going to be magnified exponentially each step of the process as you go along. So it's really important to get things symmetrical, as symmetrical as you can. From the eyes to the chin halfway is going to be the bottom of your nose. And so that's going to give him a pretty good size honker, because I didn't get it halfway. I dropped it down a little bit. But we can go with that. I want to make sure that I'm going to lay out the ears so that the ear on the left side is the same as the one on the right. Anybody that watches late night TV probably would know that the guy that does the Tonight Show on CBS, the Late Show,
Stephen Colbert.
yeah, he's got 2 different ears. And when you see that, you never can unsee it. It's there, staring at you. So there's halfway. So that tells me where my ear is going to be. And if I follow the same pattern to this side, this is where it connects. There's the flap of the ear sticking up. Drop down, come forward. And I keep everything pretty angular at this point. The back of my skull back here, this is going to come in. And the neck comes off at an angle from the shoulders to the head. It angles forward. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but the head itself, half of the head, from the front edge of the ear forward, so that part of the head and the face stick out in front of the body entirely. The exception to that would be somebody that's got a really large midsection. So if you have an overly large midsection, for whatever reason, we don't need to go there, but we can, because it's fun to do. Unless you're somebody who has an overly large midsection. But the head is dramatically protrudes in front. So this shape on the back of the head here, where the neck comes into play, is like on the back of the cranium. Even with hair, you're going to have some pretty rounded form there on the back of the head. And this is all about creating the form. The more you create form, the more you create light and shadow. The more light and shadow you create, the more depth you create, the more interest you create in your subject. Yeah, I'm gonna do something tomorrow that I love to do. I'm going to an art gallery to see what other artists do. And I am silently going to critique everything I look at. That's what we all do when we go in to a show or a competition. We go in there, at least in our mind, critiquing what we're looking at. It's like, oh, I like that, or I don't like that. And if you don't like it, you have to ask yourself, well, why don't I like it? What's wrong with it? That's how we learn. We learn from observation. We learn from watching what other people do. So you'd be surprised walking into an art gallery, what most people think is pretty good. And you go in there and start critiquing it, and you find out that it's not what you thought it was. Now, those of you that are snowed in don't get to do that. But everything's not a bed of roses here in the Southwest. I have to go out and shovel a good 12 inches of sunshine out of the way before I can back out of the garage. So yeah, it's okay to hate me. So I'm going to rub it in because you're going to give me the same shit in July when I've got to shovel 6 feet of sunshine out of the way.
No, you're gonna have to shovel 6 feet of sweat out of the way.
No, not so much here, buddy. We don't sweat much. Well, we do, but it's dry, so it's gone before it goes far. All right. On the bust. Heads turn. Suprasternal notch is where the neck and the collarbone come together. The depth of that point on a human figure is halfway on the head. So this head is turned, but that point right there has to be that deep. And as I look at this from the side view, that center line almost lines up with this. I don't have to go in very deep at all to get that far, but we've got the head turned. So that compounds things. If I look at the other side of this, there's my suprasternal notch that just about lines up with that side of the head. Where's this side? Way back here. So now I've got to go halfway between this point and this point to even make it believable. And that's going to help me create the neck. So what I do is I just start out by driving the point of my knife in. And the distance to that suprasternal notch, by the way, there is a distance there. It equals about 1 2/3 of the distance from your eye line to your chin. So if you take 2/3 of this, which is here, that's the distance down to this suprasternal notch. So from here to here, the chin should be about halfway. If anyone disagrees with anything I'm telling you, please speak up and let me know.
I haven't had that much college, Dave.
It's not about college, it's about observation. College, you know, you go to college and you listen to lectures and you read the books and you take your test to see if you remember what you heard and what you read. There's one thing that they don't grade you on is common sense. And there's a lot of people graduate college with no common sense. because it's not taught.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I mean, if it is, I never saw that. When I was signing up for classes, I never saw that one listed.
That comment has to be put into the comments for you, Dave, the words of wisdom.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. See, I'm busy right now, so I'm not able to write it down, and I guarantee you by the time I'm done, I'll have totally forgotten that.
Blake will write it down.
If you want to write it down, email it to me. That would be nice.
We'll have it on the video too when we post it.
I will thank you for that. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't seem to find time to go back and watch a lot of the videos.
Hey Dave, do you feel like it benefits you to use a longer blade knife doing necks like this around the head and shoulders? So you don't cut into the face.
You know, I've got another knife sitting right here. That will get in there just fine. Oh, look what I got right here. Brand new signature series from Helvey. I just it's no longer a virgin knife. I'm carving with it. Is anybody bidding on this stuff, by the way?
Yeah, so right now we're sitting at $300 is the high bid.
Whoa, I'm in the wrong business. Thank you, whoever that is. Make sure you stay on when we finish up so we can get your name. So an address so we know where to send it. Okay, so now you can see I've gotten into that suprasternal notch area. I've started to work that neck, and you can see the angle on the back of the neck and the angle on the front of the neck and how they're coming into play. They're kind of fitting together now. I've got a point still from the corner of the block here. I don't want to leave that point because I'm hopefully not carving a bird. A bird might want to have a point like that on the beak. So I'm going to take this back and I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch for the width of the end of the nose. So that's where the nose goes. Come back to the eye line. We need to do this ear. I just drive my knife in. V-tool will do this cleaner. But I would have to turn around and grab another tool to have a V-tool in my hand, and it's easier to just keep doing it with a knife. So once I've gone around the ear, I need to establish, oh, this ear is a wedge stuck to the side of the head. So I'm going to leave the top of the ear, the back of the ear. I'll remove the front and the lobe of the ear. That'll give me a shape. that represents an ear on a human head. Now, right here in front of the ear, and this is something I learned from my friend Vic Hood, several years teaching beside Vic, and I would hear him talk about this and had to really look to see it. But he talks about a channel that runs down the side of the head at the front of the ear, so that everything in front, from the front edge of the ear coming forward, actually starts to come out away from the head before it gets to this breakover point and moves forward. So there's almost like a channel coming up the side of the head right here. And a lot of that gets buried in hair, if there's hair up here. This wood sitting out in front of the head here isn't needed for anything. Push that out of the way. Get the other ear set here. I just start taking a little 3-cornered chip out right there where the ear attaches to the head. Come around with a series of cuts. Helps me set that ear right where I drew it on earlier. Down the front edge of the ear. This ties right into the back edge of the jaw. And if you want to do an exaggerated caricature, if you want to do a realistic head, you just follow these things that we've been talking about with regard to proportions and where they land. If you want to do one that's exaggerated, then you move the lines a little bit. You can move it up, move it down where the eye is, where the bottom of the nose is, where the mouth is. All of those are adjustable to some extent. But you can't just go in and willy-nilly decide you're going to make the eyes way up on top of the head without finding yourself developing complications that are a little hard to rectify without going back to square one. So now the ear and the neck and the jawline are pretty well established. This ear is almost as big as that guy that was sitting in front of me at Costco. Doesn't have to be that big. And I think in terms of rounding this head over, unless you've got one of these newfangled haircuts, you're probably not going to have a square at the back of the head here. You start rounding the head over up here. And if you happen to be playing around and working it up in clay, same proportions, the same principles apply. We can start creating some shape to the nose here. I do not go in and carve a socket for the eye. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. A lot of folks do. And they end up with something that looks pretty good. But I got to tell you that two of the best carvers I know tend to do the same thing with the same tool every time they carve a nose, every time they carve an ear. And what they're doing becomes repetitive. And nobody complains about what they do. I think everyone would, and I'm not going to mention any names. No one would disagree with me. The problem I have is that repetitive process means that every head they carve looks like the one they carved yesterday. Looks the same as the one they're going to carve tomorrow. They're never going to change. So practice and repetition are two different things. It just really bugs me if I carve a head and I think, oh, I've already carved that one before. It bothers me. I want to make something new every time I do it. I use the same principles that I'm talking about, but I'll change up something about it. Change the expression. Change the size. Change the way it looks. Now, artistically, when we look at something, this is just a design principle, okay? We tend to look at our art the same way we read a book. We come at it from right to left, from top to bottom. It's just natural instincts for us. If you look at Asian art, Chinese art in particular, because they read right to left instead of left to right, their eye line, when they're creating art, they take that into account. So they're reading top to bottom, but from right to left. So they're trying to get your eye to come into the focal point, which on a bust like this would probably be the expression, the eyes, a really important area on the head that most people don't even think about unless they're a portrait artist. And every portrait artist that I've ever known and every book I've read on portraiture has focused on this trapezoid right up here. And it's got a name, but the name doesn't matter. But that's their start point. That's where they work from. That's where they work from there to the eyes and stuff. But as you come into this, you're coming in, your eye is coming in, as it first sees it, it's coming in from left to right, same way you'd read a book, top to bottom. So you want to draw the eye into this area. And there's a spiral known as the Fibonacci spiral. And some of you have had my classes and know that I get really wrapped up in this Fibonacci thing. But if you take that Fibonacci spiral and you invert it right here, it will come around just like a nautilus shell, and it'll spiral right around to this point here, which is where you want the focal point to be on a bust. Now with the head turned like this, and I'm trying to create a bust here, I can taper this so that I get more of the shape of a torso. So if I take halfway on front, halfway on the back, halfway on each side. All right. Now, if you turn your head left or right, in this case, the head is turned to the right. If you're just sitting there watching your computer right now, go ahead and turn your head and see if anything happens to your shoulders. Your shoulders want to turn also. You want to look off to the right. Your shoulder just naturally wants to turn a little bit. So with it coming around this way, that means this shoulder is going to back a little bit. So I can remove this front left corner because it's looking to the left. And that's going to mean that the other shoulder is going to go back the other way. Now, I dare say that if you're watching this and you're paying attention, and you've got some of these things sitting around that you've done and played around with, and you're hearing this for the first time, you're going to go look at your stuff and try to change it on the next one you do. I guarantee you, you're going to like it better. If you don't, remember, you learn much more from failure than you do from success. So if you think it doesn't work, do another one. Okay, now when I set this down and I look at it, I can see an angle on this shoulder coming forward just because of the way the block was when I started. And this one is kind of awkward. So what I'm going to do is change the angle, this outside angle on this shoulder, pull it forward. So that this one more closely relates to this one. So I'm bringing some of my symmetry back into play. All right, now I've got way too much chest pushing out here in front. Come in with a gouge. Push this back. And in doing this, it's going to allow me to set up a collar on this shirt. Unless he's wearing a t-shirt, in which case you just carve the collar away. Push that in a little bit. Blend it down to the base of the bust. And then we get a nice natural shape to the collar on these guys. I want the top of the collar to come around the back of the neck. It comes around, it's going to ride up to the side where the head's turned. We'll blend that in to the skull, developing the neck a little bit more. It's pretty much on the back side of the neck. All right, now there's a muscle that comes down, holds the head in place, called sternomastoid. It attaches right up here to the skull underneath the ear. Comes down, the other end of it comes right down here to your suprasternal notch. And if we get that, the stat, when we turn the head, this side is where it pokes out. Over here on the close side, it doesn't stand out at all. So you don't have to be even concerned with trying to get it in over there when you turn the head. So what we do is come right down from where the ear is to the suprasternal notch. And we can go in front of that muscle and in behind it. So behind this muscle are the trapezoids coming off the shoulder blades that come up and hold the back of the head. And they divide right in the middle, but you don't see that division until we start getting older. On an old man, you would probably want to indicate that. There was a movie called, it was a Mel Brooks movie called Life Stinks. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie or not, but he's a rich guy and he makes a bet that he has to live for a week or a month or whatever. He has a period of time established by the bet he made that he couldn't live in his own neighborhood. So he's eating in a soup kitchen. And the old guy that comes to serve him, the guys are sitting there watching the guy walk away. And they say, oh, old Jake there, whatever his name was, old Jake's not going to live much longer. They said, what do you mean? How do you know that? He said, his 11s are up. What do you mean his 11s are up? He said, see that on the back of his neck right there? The two tendons that stick out on the back of the neck, they make the number 11. When your 11s are up, you're getting pretty close to the end of your ready to kick the bucket. And sure enough, the next day, while they're sitting there eating, somebody else is serving them their meal, and they talk about that. So, I mean, it's you pay attention, you can learn all kinds of stuff in all kinds of ways. So, the movie theater can be an educational endeavor. You go to college? No, I went to the movies. Oh, well, you're a pretty fart smeller. I mean, smart feller. Cheekbones, part of the blocking in process. I like to, the cheekbone is halfway between the eye and the bottom of the nose. Comes right here, another halfway point. These are all easy to learn, but until we actually put it into practice and think about it while we're doing it, we don't see it. We don't understand it. So it's not enough just to have knowledge. It's not enough just to know it. You have to see it. You have to see it in your mind. And you have to notice it. One thing that I remember Tom Richmond telling us in a drawing class was that if you're walking by a building every day, a brick building, say, on your way to work, or school, or wherever, every day you walk by this brick building, and one day you happen to look up, you've seen this building every day for years and years, and never noticed that there was a brick up there that was a different color. Just came out of the oven at a different time or something when they were making the bricks. But you notice a brick a different color, and you never noticed that before. But from that point on, if you're walking down that street looking at that building, you'll never not see that brick. It'll always be noticed. Once we see it, that's when it locks in. That's when it becomes powerfully useful information. You start putting it into your carvings, you start seeing it. But if you're just a repetitive carver and you're just blindly repeating the process over and over and over again, because you're doing Christmas ornaments and you got to do 16 of them, because that's how many you got in your family, and you try to do all 16 the same. Maybe you use a different color paint on the hat. Maybe you do a different design on the fur. But you're carving them the same. You're doing the same because it's worked for you. It's always worked for you. Why change? Change because you're going to become stagnant. Change because you're going to be less interesting. You don't want people to look at your work and say, oh, I know who did that. I've seen that before. That's really not what I want. Maybe I'm a the Lone Ranger there. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. But I don't think so. But we're fearful of change. We're fearful of doing something different just because we don't want, you might feel that, I don't care if they see the same thing as long as they like it, as long as it's something they want, as long as they'll give me a $20 bill for it when I get done, even though it took me half a day to do it. I made my $20. I'm afraid if I change it, they won't like it. I won't keep getting those $20 bills for my repetitive carvings. I just want to see more from you. I want to see you do what you're capable of doing. And if you're in Canada or on the East Coast, the odds of me seeing what you're doing are not as good as if you were in my neighborhood. So there we have a head blocked in with a neck, with a turn. And we probably consumed more of your time today than you wanted to donate. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for watching. We'll figure out who gets the knife. I got a pen right here to write down your address. So stick with us after everybody leaves, and we'll get some information from you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for sharing your time with me. Means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, for sharing your skills with us.
Thanks,
Hey, before I let you go, I want to remind everybody, you have a class coming up on March the 1st, Cowboy with a Bottle. And I feel certain, is that correct?
I do. This guy.
So let's go back to that one so everybody can see. So they'll need to reach out to you to sign up for that class. And I feel certain a lot of this stuff that you're talking about today, you'll be covered in that class as well.
I will.
Okay. So if anybody's interested in that, reach out to Dave, get signed up, find out the information as far as the pattern or the rough out, and he'll make sure he gets everything that that you need for that class. So looks like we're coming to a close here. I'll go ahead and call the auction. Rob, if you'll stay on, it looks as though you're the high bid at 400. Thank you for your donation. You'll receive the knife and the carving from Dave, and I'll get your information to send you out the certificate so that you can sign up for Wood Carving Academy. Just want to say thank you all for joining us today. It's been a great presentation. Our next meeting will be February the 1st with Alan Goodman, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We look forward to seeing you all on the 1st. So thank you all again for joining us, and this has been the International Association of Woodcarvers.
Whenever you want to do something, I just introduce whatever.
Let me see. What am I going to say? I got to think something good.
Say anything.
Oh! I've got stuff all written down. Oh, here it is.
And this is why I started the recording a couple seconds early. No,
Yeah, right.
grabbed you off getting you catching
Doing
you
your
off.
bloopers.
Yep, you'll be at the
Yes.
end of the reel.
If
Hey,
I
I
curse,
forgot
then
to
you
begin.
can't use it.
I can bleep things out.
Your bloopers. All right. That's what I want to get across. But I just need to introduce myself. So,
Your name is Dave Stetson.
I was okay till I looked up and saw myself, and all of a sudden my mind went blank.
Who am
Like-
I?
What the hell's he got on there? Sir, let's see. Should I show my shirt? No, that is not going to show up. There.
Yeah, you'd have to kind of be tall.
All right. Introduction. So Blake's going to pass it off. And thanks, Blake and Dave.
And this is the International Association of Woodcarvers.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say that.
All right. Take two.
Take two.
Hello, I'm Dave Stetson. I'm going to show you how to carve a neck on a head.
There you go.